Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night for some of you, I suspect. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll just pause for a second and I'll just allow Ahmed and Laura to quickly say hi as well.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. So happy to see everyone. Feels like a mini conference right now. It's been years since I've seen some of you, and I know it's been almost exactly a year since I've seen some of you as well. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, same here. It's great to see everyone and to see what we have to say.
All right. So we have a very tight time box and a lot to go through. So over the next hour, there's going to be a couple of folk sharing their thoughts, sharing their insights around what they're working on. We will be sharing some of the latest and greatest stuff that is happening in both the Business Agility Institute and the broader space. I want to just start with a very quick, why are we doing this? And we're doing it because we were asked to. If I may sort of just be a little bit open and frank, we've not done a great job of communicating with our members in the past. And part of that is this almost fear about sort of overwhelming people. We all get email overload. We all get sort of like spams on a regular basis. So we've kind of, I suspect we've let the pendulum swing too far, right? Where some of you haven't heard from us in months, right? If not perhaps a year. So we wanted to correct that. We wanted to give a space to talk through what is going on, but we also want to give you a space. Now, we're going to use the chat, and the reason this is not a webinar, the reason this is a standard Zoom room is we want to have a dialogue. There's going to be as much time for Q&A towards the end as we can, but we're going to set the chat aside for two very important reasons. Right? So number one, any questions you have for us, please add into the chat during the course of the town hall. I know we're going to have more questions than we have time, and we will commit to answering all the questions. Perhaps not live, perhaps we will answer the questions in Slack after this, but we will definitely answer your questions as best we can. The second is we want to use the chat as a bit of an old-fashioned bulletin board. A lot of you are volunteers. A lot of you have, you're doing things in the business agility space that is valuable to each other. So if you have something, if you're running a meetup and there's a meetup next week or the week after or in the next couple of weeks, if there's an article that you've written, if there's something that you want to share, please add those links and those details into the chat. And obviously we'll be reading that in real time, but we'll also collate all of it after the fact and send an email around to everyone with just everything that was shared. Right? So this is a chance for everyone here to sort of share a little bit about sort of what they're doing. All right, so that's going to be in the chat. There will be some Menti polls along the way, but yeah, we'll keep this nice and simple. Can I just get a thumbs up from everyone? Do you understand? Does it all make sense? Jeff nods. Perfect. Lovely. All right. Well, I'll be quiet then for a second and hand over to Ahmed and Laura.
So just wanted to sort of paint the big picture real quickly before we go into some of the specifics. So what a year. It's been quite a year of discovery and learning and reflection and so forth. And so in like most of the world and most companies have done, it really is something to think about. And for the past 12 months, we've been thinking really about our mission and our focus at the Business Agility Institute. And our mission is the same. We, after digging deep in our hearts and souls, and it's really the same. We want to help journey companies. And by the term journey companies, for those who forgot what we mean by journey companies, we use that term to indicate companies that are on the journey to become more agile as a business as a whole, right? That is to contrast them with another term we use, which is enabling companies. Those are companies that help other companies become more agile. So consulting, coaching companies, and so forth. So digging really into our sort of why do we exist, it's ultimately to help these journey companies become more agile and really embrace this business agility. And what we found was that we had experimented with a bunch of different things, expanding conferences, building chapters, meetups, even an MBA program at some point. And we wanted to sort of refocus and say, all this is good, but those are not the destinations. All of those we need to sort of realign and put them in service of journey companies, right? And so that's a really big, I would not say pivot, but refocus for us to bring everything back strategically to ask one question: how is this in service of journey companies? Laura, do you want to add anything there?
Oh, so I joined BAI in October of last year. And if I look back at the initial list of things that I was going to work on, there were all kinds of things on that list. And I think in the last couple of months, Evan and Ahmed and I have done a lot of work to really focus down to the critical things that we think are the most valuable to the community from a journey member and enabling member company. And that's empowering and also a big challenge. And there's some other things that are sitting in the sidelines that we're looking forward to doing as we get the chance. But like most Agilists, we have a whip problem that we've been working on. So our work in progress is getting some focus.
Limiting whip. Who would have thought that was a good idea?
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Ahmed, anything else you want to add?
No, I just wanted to, shame on me, I didn't introduce Laura. Laura is our COO, and she joined a few months ago, as she mentioned, and we are extremely happy to have her on board. So everyone just welcome Laura to BAI with me here. So really nothing else, just to really emphasize, you will see some differences. You will hear us talk a little differently and be a little more aggressive around, is this in service of a journey company or not? And that's just a matter of focus and staying true to our mission. So just wanted to emphasize that.
Very cool. Well, with that, then I am going to share some of the few slides that I think are part of this presentation. And this is just as a little bit of context. One of the things that Evan asked me to help facilitate was the definition of business agility. And it's really interesting to work with a group from the outside and then get to see behind the curtains. And one of the obvious, like, oh my God, you're right, there really isn't a definition of business agility at BAI, was one of those things that I had thought existed. I had just not like internalized it, but no. So after a fair bit of discussion, what we have come up with is the definition that you see on the screen. And what we wanted was something that would resonate with an executive, with a leader who potentially isn't part of our group now. So someone who finds BAI, who does a search and stumbles across us, we wanted it to resonate for them. So business agility is a set of organizational capabilities and behaviors and ways of working. What we really wanted to emphasize there was these are the things that is the fuel that makes your business run. And by having a set of capabilities, behaviors, and working that line up to give your business the freedom and flexibility to achieve its purpose. So that last bit is super important, no matter what the future brings, because the future can bring opportunity and challenges. And we believe that business agility is the set of capabilities that lets you thrive in that space, not just survive. So this is the definition that you're going to see on a new website that's going to be launched, that's going to be in our talking points. And moving forward, we're going to really work hard to help instill this definition in the ecosystem, into the life force of our group. The other thing, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, and as you guys are reading it, I'm sure some of you will be like, but what about this? What about that word? Nothing is going to be perfect. This is the current state of it. We will always iterate, improve, but we have to start somewhere, and we have to sort of, you know, draw some line in the sand to move things forward. So this is our current definition. Again, any feedback, any thoughts, please send to us. But you know, just wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is we're going for something that you can say in one breath.
Yes.
So depending on the context, the things that you're used to seeing about pivoting and the different aspects of business agility would be in the explanation or in the words below this very simple one breath definition. The other interesting thing is it's nothing like joining an organization and then once you're with the organization asking, so exactly what is the Business Agility Institute? Turned out we didn't have that one sentence that said, this is what we are. So our other little challenge was to define that again in something that's close to one breath. So Business Agility Institute is a fiercely independent group that does research and advocacy. We want to really share some emphasis on the idea of advocacy. We want to be out in the wilds of business advocating for the value of business agility and its place in helping companies be ready for that next generation. And we do this through a couple of things. We drive industry level, business level change through applied research, pragmatic guidance, and building networks of individuals and organizations. So we're not a think tank only for great thoughts about business agility, but we're interested in the research and the guidance that a company who comes to us will see and be able to use to improve how they do business and how they succeed in achieving their purpose. Again, our goal is the success of our community members, no matter what the future brings. And just like with the definition, I'm sure this will evolve over time. However, it gives a really nice set of guide rails in terms of who we are, and through that implication, who we are not with respect to the world of business agility. Anything you want to add, Ahmed or Evan?
Good.
Awesome. I will hand it back to the Ringmeister.
I'll just say that we spent a long time and trying to figure those out. We bandied about words like standards body and professional association, and all of which are true, but none of which are comprehensive. And it's part of the limiting width problem is an identity problem. We knew what we were not. We were not consulting. We were not training. We knew we were independent, but you can't create an identity around what you're not, or at least not outside of politics anyway. Sorry, all joking aside, I want to invite one of our key volunteers to share the stage for the next 5 minutes and talk about something that I hope you all are aware about, and I hope you've all registered, which is the Global Online Business Agility Conference, which is literally next week. This was a conference that, how should I say it? It was a surprise to me when the volunteers self-organized and decided to run this, and it was a joyful surprise. So Mike is, there he is. Do you want to unmute and share a couple of things?
All right. Thank you, Evan. Seeing so many known faces, it's really cool. 5-minute presentation, that's always great. So there's no slides. There's just a short story, and you probably have been to the conference, or maybe you haven't, but those who have been to the business agility conferences, whether in New York or in other places, I think there was London and there was Vienna. I'm from Vienna. It's always been a special opportunity because it's not only been a conference, the usual one, but it's been a lot of interaction, co-creation, all the deep dives you've probably experienced or heard about. They're just unique. And I think 1 year ago, we spent some time in New York City for the last Business Agility Conference. And for those who remember, that was a weird time. It was not only the past year, but this one event 1 year ago was like, how's it called? I'm not a native speaker, but it's called the eye of the storm, when you're right in the middle. I think New York was not aware yet of the pandemic. I remember because you were walking around and people were just in crowds. You can imagine this today, what happened there, but we felt comfortable. The only thing what happened, I think hourly people were departing because they feared not getting home anymore. So the conference was even a few days before already being prepared for an on-site, but also online and virtual conference. Really amazing what was becoming possible. And what was really also amazing, I think the weekend I came back, Austria was locked up. A very weird experience, right? Something about democracy. You're not supposed to leave your home anymore. Still, we had the opportunity, the idea to have a conference in May in Vienna. And obviously this idea vanished quite quickly. So we postponed it to November. And guess what happened? Nothing happened. The pandemic grew. And in November, we just thought, all right, no, it was not November. In autumn, we thought, okay, let's swap from in-person to virtual. And when we approached November, we actually figured out, on the one hand side, we're not prepared enough and we don't want to have it chaotically set up. And at the same time, we just thought, if it's online, why should it be attached to Vienna? Because that's ridiculous, right? Vienna conference, but online. And the next idea of about 5 people, the core team for Vienna, thought, why not global? I mean, we could have thought universal, but we thought global is enough for the first step. And then just said, all right, let's go for it. Probably not November, but this year, March. So we selected March and we thought, let's start growing it. So we reached out to people. We split the world, a little bit American, forgive me, please, into 4 parts, just to say, here is EMEA, here's APAC, here's LATAM, and the rest, right? North America. And find people who are crazy as we were, because we all have a day job, to join us. And we ended up with 4 teams, 4 groups, as one. And together with the facilitators, I think we're about now 100 people who are serving this conference starting next Monday online. I think we start in APAC as geography tells us. The sun starts in the east, so we start in APAC. We then hand over to EMEA. We'll then hand over to North America and LATAM, somehow going in parallel. LATAM also with local Spanish language. I'm not sure if there is any Portuguese language. So a huge, amazing conference. And by the way, we've been already running events until, I think, for a month now, which we called the Learning Series. So we had regular meetups every week. I'm not sure how many there were. It must have been about 40 or so, 30 or 40. And we had more than 1,000 participants for various amazing talks. The talks are recorded. And so two more things. First, great thank you to the Business Agility Institute for supporting us. Big thank you to this whole large team. I can't name all of them because otherwise we would spend the whole evening. They're on the website, and the website is called Business Agility Conference without any dash or anything between, .global. So you'll find the link there. You find all the information. You find the program there. It starts on Monday. It runs until Thursday. And we're supported by great sponsors. Our title sponsor is Deloitte. I think Stefan is here today, so they're helping us. There is Scrum Alliance. There is IC Agile as gold sponsors. There's Lucidchart. And we have 3 amazing supporting organizations who sent more than 15 delegates. I think there is one bank in Peru who's showing up with 22 delegates. So really an amazing thing. All in all, will be about 500 people. So we currently have about 450 registered. And if you want to register, I'll send here in the chat a short promo code, which gives you, I don't know, €2 discount. So like 50%, because the prices are super low. I think it's 20% or something. More important, whatever is left over, and I think will be some money, goes to, I can't speak in French, Médecins Sans Frontières, so Doctors Without Borders, who are actually our charity. We also will have an event with them to hand over the check. So we'll hope to have Evan and or Ahmed with us in a few weeks. And we already had an amazing conference, a meeting with them last week, so a meetup, where they actually showed us what agility really means in the field, in this case, fighting against cholera. So that is the story, and a short story, and it must have been thousands of hours which went into this whole event. Again, it's more than 100 people. It's amazing. It's great we didn't need to pay for it, because that would have been maybe a few $100,000, right? So here's the invitation. Join. Amazing conference, amazing program. But again, it's not only talks, it is a lot of interaction. We've got facilitators, professional facilitators. We've got all these deep dive stuff. We've got all the time zones. So get some pills from your pharmacy, not to fall asleep. Spend 4 days, 24, 4 times, and then you can rest, take some holidays, and take this whole thing in, take part, and I'll drop a link here for registration in a minute. That was it.
Thank you, Mike. And if you haven't registered, please do so. It's the charity Médecins Sans Frontières, or Doctors Without Borders, is a truly great organization, and we're happy to be part of that and supporting them. I made a joke that this was a surprise, and it really was. This was a case of volunteer, like self-organization, self-management even, where their decision to go global, we found out probably about a week after they made the decision to go global. And they led this with such grace and aplomb, such dedication, that it was of course, absolutely, you have our blessing. If anyone's read the book Turn the Ship Around, or seen David Marquet talk, this is the top level of that ladder of leadership. I'm going to tell you what I've done, rather than I'm going to ask for permission at the bottom. So very quickly moving on to the next bit, which is relevant for every single person here, and that is what we are doing. So as Ahmed mentioned, we are focusing a lot more on journey companies. But one thing that hasn't changed, in fact, has actually doubled down, is our investment in content and information and inspiration. So the Business Agility Library is growing quite dramatically. And a few things are happening and have happened. So number one, there is a new website going live in a week, almost to the day, unless there's any issues from the developers. Yay. Those of you who have spoken to me about this, I've been saying we've been a couple of weeks away from this new website for about 6 months. And that's not a joke.
Longer.
I think we've been talking about this for way longer than we should. But everything's set. Those of you who, I'm assuming most of you, if not all of you, are members, you will receive an email with some details ahead of next Friday. You will also receive a password reset request. That is not spam or phishing. It's because we cannot migrate your password across from system A to system B because we don't know it. It's all encrypted, all those wonderful things. So you will need to reset your password on the new website when it goes live. So just expect some more information about that in the coming days when that happens. As part of our investments in content, we have also entered into a partnership with Centennial Press to publish books. We now have a publishing imprint, BAI Press. This is new. We have one amazing book, which, oh, where's my, there it is. And I see Jardina on the call, waving, thank you. So this is our first book coming out of BAI Press, Cultivating Transformations. If you are a member, you can download it for free from the library, right? If you want the physical copy or you want to get something on Kindle, go to Amazon and you can buy a copy from all good bookstores, whatever the saying is. The other thing that we have with BAI Press, which some of you are subscribed to, is our new magazine, our new journal. Right? We now have a publication. Our goal is to get this into airport bookstores. One of the reasons it's called Emergence, because emergence is a vital concept to business agility, but also we're aiming at a business audience for this. This is a journal, a magazine that we would not be out of place sitting beside HBR or Forbes on a CEO's coffee table. At least that's the intention behind it. Issued at the printers right now. In fact, I think it's actually out of the printers today. I think it's hitting the post office today. I'll have to double check. So that comes out quarterly. Now, there's a lot of great material coming out. I want to, and this is where I want to bring up Menti for a second. So Laura, if you can share your screen. What I'd like each of you to do is grab out your phone or go to a web browser, type in the code 5354171. And I want you to share what you think is the most important theme for you. These are obviously important to us because this is in large part where we're going to be investing our time and our energy to get data, get information, share those stories. And while this is coming up and while people are sharing, I would also like to ask just a very small, if any of you have stories to share, right? And remember, we are fiercely independent, right? We're not here to help you advertise your services, right? We do believe in credit where credit is due, right? So please make sure like logos and references are absolutely fine. But if you have a story that is inspirational or guidance that is informational or can help people on that journey, right, then please get in contact with me and we can arrange anything from helping, getting you writing something and getting an editor involved, to engaging a writer to interview your organization to tell that story. And whether that story goes in the library or in Emergence, right, we have multiple channels now to share that story. And I will also say, if you feel like you have a book inside you, come and have a chat as well, because that's launching a publishing imprint is something new for us. Transformation and change. There we go. Culture, mindset, transformation, change, humanizing business, systems thinking. I love it.
Oh, so disruption just got a couple of pity votes. I love it.
and my favorite of governance. No one likes governance. I'm disappointed. Governance is, I like governance. All right. I'm just looking at the time, making sure. So can we just go to the next page then?
Yeah.
Next slide. And so let's be a bit broader. Right? What content do you want to see? So just put in a couple of words. What is it that you want to see? It could be a company, it could be a topic, it could be a theme. We're going to use this to try and be, well, in true agile fashion, customer centric. And while that's coming up, I'd like to, so just Mark and Deanna, you'll be up next. Right? So the other thing that, as you saw in Laura's, when Laura was sharing our attempt to define who the Institute is, right? Research is a fundamental part of everything that we do. And the Institute didn't start as a research organization. It happened, there's an amazing person called Linda Rising who made a comment, the plural of anecdote is not data, right? And it's a quote, it's actually a misquote, a deliberate misquote. But one of the reasons we do research is so much of our community is based on experience and anecdote, right? And we wanted to provide an evidence base for everything that we have experienced. We currently have 14, or we support 14 research teams. Some of these are professional, so industry focused. Some of these are academic focused, right? And it's neither good nor bad. Right? What we want is to share academically rigorous research on topics that are relevant to the next generation of companies. Right? These topics cover everything from diversity, equity, inclusion, transformation patterns based on different company sizes, psychological safety, leadership. Actually, I think we have 3 leadership research projects, or 3 research projects on leadership. So research is a fundamental piece for us. So this is great information. Can I invite, so actually, before I do that, I'll step back. Laura Ahmed, any comments about content before I hand over to the
No,
GP?
just it's more of a request, and in being truly customer centric and journey company centric, you guys are actually closer, many of you, to these companies. You work with them, you hear their problems, you help them out. And so if you know of research problems, if you know of case studies, please help us fulfill that mission by bringing those voices forward, by bringing these people. And it's something we ask of you, and we can't do it without you. So.
Yeah. So let me hand over for a 5-minute lightning talk from 2 amazing volunteers who are leading the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Research Project, Mark and Deanna, who I've made you co-host, so you can unmute.
Cool. Thanks, Evan. I'll step up first. So just a little bit about me first and how this research came about. So I have a visual impairment and have really struggled in the agile world with basically because of the heavy reliance on physical visualizations, such as post-it notes, primarily pre-COVID, before things went very electronic. And I found that being actually heard had been particularly frustrating for me in that environment. So Evan and I first met when I participated in a local meetup around agility, diversity and inclusion in 2019. And we kept continuing our chats after that to see what we could do together to help in the area of inclusion, equity and agility. So really questions that have arisen in terms of my situation is about, in terms of, was it just me? Was I unlucky? Was it just where I worked? Is there a connection to agile, or would these issues have happened anyway? So those sort of things. So we decided to go to whatever everyone was talking about, that we needed to do some research, get some data to try and answer some of these questions. So really to try and find out, are there real issues out there? And if so, what could we do about them? So from there, the project was born, which is really about the interplay of agility and inclusion and equity. So we're looking at both the awesome and the not so awesome. So we've gathered a group of volunteers from around the world. I think at the last count, we were around, people have come and gone because it's been a long journey. About 68 people who have contributed in some form or other. We actively sought to speak to people and interview people from different countries, different job roles, organisation types, genders, sexualities, races, abilities, ages, ethnic backgrounds, you name it, we tried. So we took on a huge scope when you look at this, because it is about diversity. So you need to speak to a lot of people. So as part of that, many times we talked about cutting our scope to make it more doable because it was so big. But to be fair and to try and avoid skewing results, cutting our scope would also potentially cut our diversity that we're talking to. So we really didn't want to do that. So we went big and stressfully big at times, and ultimately in the end, we've conducted about 120 face-to-face 1-hour interviews and over 300 online surveys. So to guess, we've probably spent around 1,400 volunteer hours so far. So what we can see from it is there's a clear passion out there for this topic. It absolutely needs more focus, and people want that. So we've finished all of our data gathering, analysis, and we're now finalising our findings as a team. So it's really getting exciting because we're getting to the report bit, the outcomes. So I'll hand over quickly to Deanna, and she'll talk about some of what we've seen so far.
Thanks, Mark. So I just wanted to share 4 of our early findings that are coming through from the team. So number 1 is that many people that we interviewed had not given a lot of thought to inclusion and equity prior to taking part in the research. And for them, participating got them reflecting on what's happening in their organisation, their roles and behaviour, and impacts onto their customers and industry. And so obviously the occurrence of the pandemic and the global social movements meant that inclusion and equity was in the news. And many of our interviewees said that our research has made them think differently about inclusion and equity in agile teams, and they really want to know more. Number 2 is that the level of understanding of diversity dimensions is really varied. Often people only mentioned gender, culture, or disability. And we found that people's belief systems, their ethnic backgrounds, and the country that they were working in all contributed to their understanding. So point number 3 is all about the many stories that we shared. I mean, people really opened up to us. We had some amazing companies that gave their support to have their employees involved in this, all anonymous, and people really shared that they felt excluded because either due to their identity, being either part of the LGBT community, having a disability, being a single parent, being a working parent, being over 50, their level of education, their background, being an immigrant, their religious beliefs, being an introvert, or having different styles of thinking, or their mental health challenges. So number 4 point that I really want to leave you with is that we have an opportunity to rethink our one team approach in Agile. As business leaders, Agile coaches, Scrum Masters, tech gurus, product owners, HR, finance, and other team members, apologies if I've left off anyone in your role because everyone's so vital to a team. We are all really great at being at continuous learning and delivering for our solutions for our customers and clients. So now is the time to really adapt and constantly evolve our approach to our people and teams. So our research findings will be published in May in the Business Agility website and also in the Emergence Journal. In the meantime, thank you, Laura. In the meantime, Mark and I are happy to be contacted if you want to know more. Thank you for listening. We hope this topic sparks your curiosity. Thanks, Evan.
No, thank you. This has been a journey. As Mark said, there's been about 60 people who have been involved over the last over 12 months in this piece of research. And it is such a vital topic. The community doesn't come out shining brightly in it. This is not rah, aren't we amazing findings. At the same time, it's not all doom and gloom, but there is an authenticity to the responses that we've been receiving, and respectfully, we want to make sure that the findings and what is published matches that authenticity. So a lot of that's going to be coming out, and there'll be, yes, there's the main report, and there'll be some supplementary material that will come out alongside it. So watch this space. And I will also note this isn't the last thing we're going to be doing in the DE&I space. It is such a large, rich topic that there's going to be a lot more happening, both with this data and more going forward from a lot of this. So if there's interest, if you'd like to be involved in whatever the next steps are, then come and have a conversation. So I am mindful of time, and we're a little bit over what we wanted to be in terms of where we wanted to be. So I'm going to speed up a little bit because there are a couple more things that I want to get to, as well as keeping time for some Q&A. So the first, and we'll be very, very fast, is to announce we are currently running the second pilot phase for our Certified Agile Organization program. Now, this is, how shall we say, controversial, right? And we know that some of you are going to hear the word certification and go, WTF. And I'm obviously, I'm being recorded, so I won't say that out loud. So I want to take a couple of moments and I want to bring Ahmed into this conversation, because there are reasons behind going down this path. I will also caveat, the word certification conjures up 2-day training courses or like training courses. This is not individual certification. This is not about a learning journey and certifying learning or education. This is corporate certification, like Great Place to Work certification or B Corp certification or Green Building certification. This is certifying an organization, not an individual. So I will caveat, because a lot of people make that mistake. So very quickly,
I was going to say, which for some of you may be even worse. Like, oh my God, you're going to certify a whole organization. That's even more complex. Totally acknowledge that. And again, starting with the point we started with earlier, being customer centric, we talk to many, many companies about this, and there is a real need. And you know, we won't lie to you. We hesitated a lot. Do we go down this route or not? Right. And we know that our community and even the larger community is allergic to these, you know, certifications and all that. But here's the reality. We said, if we can figure out how to do this right, it is very, very valuable. And I believe that BAI and you know, this community is positioned to figure out how to do this right. And that's the journey we're on, right? We're going to make mistakes along the way, but I hope everyone on this call knows sort of who we are and what we stand for, and sort of the values we have. And this is not a you know, a scam or any of this. This is something customers need, and it's very complex. And if we don't do it, you know, you guys know how it goes. Someone else will, and it will be different, and it will be of lower quality. So so we are taking the hard journey to figure this out. And for those who know me, I've done my PhD in this topic. I have done a ton of research for the past 20 years on this. So this is not just like, okay, what is the easiest way to certify a company? There's a ton of rigor behind this. And how do you measure the agility of an organization? What part of the organization? How big is the organization? You know, what about this? What about that? All of those things have been considered, and we invite you. We don't have the time right now to go under the hood and show you the rigor, but this is an invitation for anyone who is curious, skeptical, anything. We're gonna schedule 2 deep dives. We'll go over the model. We'll show you sort of under the hood the rigor and what it entails to actually certify an organization. And so, Evan, you'll share the timings for those and the registration for those. Yep. And again, invitation, be curious, don't judge, right? And help us, because again, this is something we know organizations need. They've asked for it explicitly multiple times, and we are trying to figure out the best way to do this. So yeah, go ahead, Evan.
I do want to add two things to this. So first of all, so the trigger for this wasn't actually us. Right? It's not something. It's not an idea that we had. It actually started from, of all places, the New Zealand government. So the government of New Zealand approached us and said, we would like a certification scheme for New Zealand companies to inspire them, to give them something to reach for. Right? And this was pilot phase 1. And we have expanded well beyond the boundaries of New Zealand in pilot phase 2, which is where we currently are at the moment. The other thing that I want to note, and there's a few comments in the chat. First of all, we recognize that you can't measure agility, not directly. What you can measure are behaviors and capabilities. And so that is where the measurement is. Secondly, we recognize that agility is a journey, right? There's no single point. We can't say, aha, an organization is 5.1, therefore you're agile. So it's that journey. We're certifying a journey, not a state. Right? Third, there is no, an organization is a complex adaptive system. It is big. It will have high capability and low capability simultaneously. So it's not possible to create a point on a chart and say, this is your organization. The company is the entire curve, right? From low to high across multiple dimensions. It's not even just a single dimension thing. So I do want to leave you with the belief that we recognize the challenge of what we're doing, that this is a nuanced approach. This is not about, are you doing Scrum? Tick, right? This is looking at behaviors, characteristics. You don't even have to call it agile or business agility. We're looking at, are you expressing the right behavior? Capabilities with names like psychological safety, like emergent strategy, right? Things that are necessary for organizations. And with that understanding, that nuanced view of an organization is big and complex and has a lot of moving parts and high and low at the same time. So I will send out, so when we summarize, we'll send out the link to the recording and the notes and so forth. I will also send out an invitation for anyone who would like to deep dive into the model behind the certification. It will be in 2 weeks on the 31st/1st, depending on which side of the international dateline you lie. So it'll be in approximately 2 weeks, 13 days. So there'll be 2 sessions. So we'll cover Europe, American time zones, Asian time zones as best we can. So I want to park there. There's a lot to unpack. I want to hand very quickly over to Laura to just touch on one final initiative, that a call to action, and then we'll go to questions.
So I told Evan I could do this in 3 sentences. I didn't tell him that they would be compound, complex sentences. So one of the things that is true about BAI is the heartbeat of BAI is the volunteers. It's grown from 4 volunteers to 300 volunteers in just a couple of years. And we want to acknowledge that there's a lot of opportunity to be better at how we approach what we're now calling volunteer agility, from how we talk about opportunities to volunteer, how we connect people with the opportunities, onboard them, give them an opportunity to contribute, and then to be able to move on and find other opportunities. So we are launching some work in that space. So keep an eye out for a survey, some opportunities for interviews. And specifically, I'm interested in, if you know of some volunteer organizations outside of the world of agility that you feel like have some lessons that we could learn from, please contact me, because we'd be really interested to talk with them. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Cool. Thank you, Laura. All right, so we have a few minutes for some questions. And if you want to put your questions in the chat window, let's do that.
There's been a lot of things chatting. So
Oh, I mean, we expected once we talked about the certification, people would have these feelings. I get it, totally get it, totally get it. But again, we invite you to be curious and, you know, don't judge something until you see what's under the hood. Come in 2 weeks. Let's see, let's hear. Because, you know, again, we've put a ton of effort in figuring out how to do this right. And we know we've got some aspects of it wrong, but we are not coming in naive knowing that this is an easy problem. I personally have spent the past 20 years of my life on figuring this out. So anyway, all that to say, what questions do you guys have?
So the chat has blown up. So if anyone has questions, just unmute and ask. I'm having trouble finding questions in the chat.
So, quick question, Facebook or Slack? I know we've got a Facebook channel I largely ignore, and a Slack channel I'm active.
Slack is where we're active, yes, Alan.
Slack, most definitely.
And Evan just put the URL in chat, so.
Other questions about anything? The DE&I research, the library. There seems to be quite an active conversation about like some sort of a book writing club. So I'm very curious to see what turns out of that. That's going to be fun.
Hey guys, love the book writing idea as well, but I wanted to ask about the roundtables. I really enjoyed this structural agility roundtable, and there was none for a while. What's the plan around that?
Laura?
That's so that was one of the things that didn't quite make the cusp on the WIP, and it's a temporary thing. So as we get this website completed and a few other things going, we will be restarting the roundtables, and we'll probably have 1 or 2 going on at any particular time. So stay tuned, Dana, more coming.
Thank you, great news.
Come on.
What else?
Unmute, ask your question. Just say hi.
Silence. Wow.
No.
I think we shocked everyone into silence. There we go. George, Jorge, I apologize, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce your name. There's nothing been published about the phase 1 in New Zealand, in part because it was something done in conjunction with the government. So nothing. Governments have particular challenges with some of with what they publish. Right? So a lot of it was a lot of it is not public yet. I'm more than happy to sit and have a conversation about sort of what we did and what we learned, because there's a lot of what we learned, if what not to do through that. So happy to share that, but no, unfortunately, there's nothing sort of published about it.
So Evan, your comment earlier about research and the importance of research, could we hook that up with certification? And
Yes.
Should there be research about, you know, what certifications work, what don't, what difference it should make? You know, should we get some universities in New Zealand involved?
So everything that we have been doing is based on it's based on data. It's based on research. Whether it's grounded research, grounded theory, whether it's different research approaches. So the models, even the domains of business agility, evolved out of grounded research and grounded research approaches. So there's one of the things so interestingly with the domains, we've had to expand on them because the domains is a characteristic-based model. Right? So it's the characteristics of an agile organization, right? Growth mindset, right? People management. You can't measure growth mindset. You can't measure people management. So we've actually had to expand and build out that model into the behaviors and the capabilities, things which are quantifiable. Otherwise,
Evan, just to speak to that, not everything needs a thermometer. Sometimes a barometer is the correct instrument, right? The barometer has a number, but the point of the barometer is the rate of change and direction of change. So it's an understanding, not a number. So when we think around it, the KPIs or the metrics, I think it's helpful to say a barometer would be very useful for understanding that. I don't need a number. We don't need to know what it is. We need to understand which way is it going, and to what extent and the rate of that change. There's the way we can take lagging data and actually have some predictive analytics from it. That would be helpful.
So one of the things that we've had to build into the statistical models behind all of this is an understanding, and I'm talking here the certification model, or the model behind it, is that it's not a point. I can't average a company and say you're 5.3. That is meaningless. What we're looking at is 3 attributes of a curve. Yes, there's a midpoint, but there's also a standard deviation, technically interquartile range, for those of you who are stats minded. So what we're looking at is what's the spread of the behaviors and the capabilities throughout the organization. And interestingly, it's actually 2-dimensional, because a single team may be strong in one capability and weak in another. So it's not just about one team has low capabilities. A single team can have high and low at the same time. So those are 2 attributes. Yes, midpoint. Second is the spread, but the third is the delta, the move. So the curve evolves and changes over time. And it's not as simple, does it move up or down? Because it it's wavy. It's
not linear.
It's not linear.
Yeah? No.
So what we're looking at is what is the shape of the curve and what is the movement of the curve.
But you have to be able to, because it's subjective, right? Because it's there is some level of subjectivity to that. I find that when we look at trying to create understanding, we look for the quantitative in the ways you're describing. It's not about the number, it's about the trends and understanding those wavy patterns, but you validate it with feedback, right? So the sentiment, analysis, emotion, those are the things that tell you how real that delta is, why that delta might exist. And it's a lot more work, but the validity of it is remarkable. I mean, people pay attention when they feel seen, heard, and valued. And so when you can take that validation and apply it to it. My point is, any kind of certification or process like that is the piece of paper, which is what people are arguing about in chat, right? Who cares? The more important thing is the learning over time and the degree to which there is agility happening, and how is it manifest, and how are people talking and feeling about it. I think there's a way to represent that as a non-graphable curve, but more like a Mobius loop, like it just never ends. You just continue to get better.
Yes.
But we need to understand it in some way. I'm trying not to be too completely geeky here, but it feels like the abstraction of it is worth the discussion.
Yeah, and
the numbers get geeky.
I was going to say, yeah, like please join the deep dive, because that's where we're going to get into those details and show how do we calculate this. These are all survey based. We survey the employees. We have evidence that the people have to submit. I think there's like mention of the word agile 5 times in the 140 questions or something like that. So we're looking at behaviors. We're not asking people, are you doing agile, right? We're asking people very, very specific behavioral things, and those behaviors link back to capabilities. And that's really what we're basing the assessment.
You've got 2 questions here. Certifying the individual is different than certifying or measuring the company. Yes. And there is an assumption, there seems to be an assumption in some HR departments, if we hire enough certified people, the company will be agile. It's just, and the other thing I would comment, and I know this from experience I had the other year, people are doing this. We know some certification exists, and we know people, and in my case, it was McKinsey, were measuring how agile a company is. So if we don't partake in this, people are going to do it badly.
Yes.
There may be an opportunity to do something better, something worthwhile, or it may just be that you can write the paper to end all papers on why this is a load of rubbish.
Fair enough.
So I do want to just very quickly note that we are at time, and we do want to respect the time box. I'm happy to keep the conversation going a little bit longer for those who want, but I do want to invite those who have a job and lives and families to go to.
Actually, Evan, I think
yeah,
I think just for the sake of FOMO, people not feeling that they missed out on part of the conversation, let's end here. If you're interested in the certification, we knew this would be a big topic. That's why we have 2 deep dives scheduled. Register for those, because before we can actually engage in the discussion, we need to show you what we have so that we're on the same wavelength, and then we can engage in a deeper discussion. So Evan, did you send the registration link?
The registration links will come out. There'll be an email that will come out after this
great.
with the details,
Fantastic.
including the registration links.
Sounds
so
great.
That's fair. So I want to
right.
thank everyone for your time, and especially Mike, Deanna, Mark for sharing some of the amazing work that's happening. And I'm so intensely happy to have each of you as part of this community and to be associated with you. It's amazing.
Thank you all for showing up, and it's just the beginning of the journey together.